I prayed he would burn in hell, but in my heart, I knew that hell would not have him. What's up, guys? Welcome to Halloween 5 Revisited, directed by Dominique Othenin Girard, and it also stars Ellie Cornell, Danielle Harris. But this is going to be a lot of fun. This is a revisited review that I've been planning for a long time now, actually, quite a few months. When I do these revisited reviews, especially for Halloween, I like to give them some space. Maybe do once a month, once even every 2 months. But yeah, this is one I'm really excited about because Halloween 5 is not a good movie. It's probably like my second least favorite. But there is some interesting elements to this movie. There's a lot of stuff that's really fun to talk about, to discuss. Yeah, this movie, it's a conversation piece. It really is. So, looking forward to getting into this. Also, quick shout out to MK Songbird. He was the guy in my previous video for my complete VHS collection. I said, if you can guess how many VHS movies are in that video, then I'll give you a shout out. He said 104. I said close enough. So you get a shout out, good sir. But also, I have my We Are Michael Myers t-shirt, Killer Flicks. If you want this t-shirt, go over to the Drumdums store. I'll post a link right here and you can go get one. But anyway, on to Halloween 5 Revisited. Now the way I'm gonna do this, like I do all my revisited reviews, I don't do them like a normal review. I don't do like, here's your pros, here's your cons, here's your rating, whatever. I like to just go through the movie chronologically. And so I'll be talking about pros and cons along the way. And I like to just dig a little deeper in these reviews than my normal reviews. So, yeah. But first, let's talk about that opening scene. I love when Halloween movies, they start with that pumpkin intro. And this one is pretty damn cool. You got this pumpkin that's against this like black backdrop. And then you see this knife just constantly carving and making these cool sounds. But you don't realize that it is a pumpkin immediately because it's so close up. But then as the camera like pulls back, then you notice that it's actually a pumpkin. But I thought this one was really creative. And I'm hoping that the new movie coming out this October has that iconic pumpkin intro, because we haven't seen that in a long time and I would love to see that. But like Halloween 2, this one picks up right where Halloween 4 left off. We see Myers, he has just fallen in the mine shaft. The cops have loaded it up with bullets. But in Halloween 5, we see him floating down a ravine. And we hear the music. And then all of a sudden we notice that the Myers mask looks a lot different. That's one thing that drives me crazy about these movies, is that every movie they go with a different mask. Part of me loves it, part of me hates it. I know for rights they couldn't use the first mask because they didn't want to get sued by William Shatner. This mask was actually designed partly by special effects creator Greg Nicotero's own face. Greg Nicotero actually is a big director now and practical effects guy. He does The Walking Dead. He's directed like the last few seasons of The Walking Dead. But that is partially his face that they used for a mold of that. And I will say I do dig this opening scene visually. It's dark, it's creepy, it's mysterious. Michael looks really creepy in this scene. This is the first time we've ever seen Michael like floating down a river, which sounds silly enough, but it's interesting to look at. It really is. So far, we've started off pretty good. I'm completely interested in what's going on. And I will say quickly, after Halloween 4, they announced that we were gonna get a Halloween 5 like a year later. If you watch my Halloween 4 Revisited, you know that that was the movie that made me the Halloween fan that I am today. That ending just completely floored me, gave me nightmares for years, and I wanted to know what was going to happen next. I guess in the filmmaker's defense, how do you make a story that catapults off of that ending? Not an easy feat. I know that Danielle Harris maybe jokingly said at a convention that it would have been cool if she would have been the killer.
You know, that's what I thought was going to happen. I thought I was going to get back and I was going to be the killer, which would have been awesome. A little frightening, but awesome. Or at least his sidekick, you know, something kind of crazy.
I don't think that would have been a good idea. Having a child killer throughout the rest of the movie, or even having Jamie grow up to an adult and being a killer, I think you're setting yourself up for trouble if you go that route. So I'm glad they didn't. I'm glad Myers stayed the killer throughout the rest of the series. So I guess that's a start into the cons for this movie that we're going to talk about along the way, because there are a lot of them. But Myers, he stumbles upon this hermit and he passes out, and then he wakes up a year later. And what wakes him up, we see Jamie, she's having an episode. And right away we realize that Jamie is mute. She can't talk. But she can see what Michael sees, which I do like that. I think that's a cool aspect to this movie. Everything that Michael's doing, she can visualize. And so that's what startles her. It drives her mad almost. So mad that they actually want to perform a tracheotomy. And luckily Dr. Loomis comes to the rescue and says, no. So, which is a question like, did Loomis know that she was channeling Myers? I don't know. It's never really addressed. But Loomis knew something. But Myers stays with this hermit for a year. So did this hermit like feed him along the way? It's never really talked about or anything, never mentioned. And if you have the Blu-ray, you can actually see Don Shanks' face when he sits up in that scene. I never noticed that. I have the VHS right behind me back there, and I've watched this movie quite a few times on VHS, on DVD. I never noticed that Don Shanks actually sits right up in the back of that scene. And they do show his face later. That's part of the marketing strategy they had for this movie, was finally Myers would be revealed. And we will get to that scene later. But Myers kills the hermit, and then he is on a warpath to find Jamie and to kill her once and for all. And then we are introduced to Tina. Oh my God, here we go. This is probably my biggest con of this whole movie. And let's talk about Tina for a minute. The introduction to this character is already annoying. That stupid bump-a-da-ba sound that she makes.
It looks so good.
Immediately, you don't like this character at all. I don't know if she's trying to be cool or something, or I don't know what she's doing. I've never seen a character like this in a horror movie or a slasher movie, and I've never wanted a character to die so quickly. And it would be fine if she was just a supporting character, but she is our main lead that is there to protect Jamie throughout the rest of this movie. It's not just this scene, it's every scene that this girl is in. And no disrespect to Wendy Kaplan. I know that as an actress, you want to take on a role and you want to make it your own. So I guess in her defense, she definitely made it memorable.
This character in particular, I think, is different than other characters in horror movies, and just her sense of fun and values and like craziness. I would say it's a good catch for a role. She's just like loves to be the center of attention and loves to like have people watch.
There are people that actually do love Tina. I've seen it. For the most part, I would say she is the most hated character in the franchise. But you know what? Again, at least Wendy Kaplan tried to bring something memorable to the character and not just be a character that's completely forgettable, which we've seen hundreds of times.
Me playing Tina is like, you know, taking all those things in me and putting them out, all the wildness and all the kind of rebelliousness, but yet total fun, and putting them into one person.
And that brings me to the previous heroine in Halloween 4, Rachel. On the flip side of that, Rachel is probably my all-time favorite final girl, maybe close to Kirsty from Hellraiser. I think Rachel embodies everything you want in a final girl. She completely stands up almost from the get-go for Jamie. Even more than Laurie Strode. Like Laurie Strode in the first movie, throughout that whole movie, she's really just a shrinking violet. She finally stands up at the very end of the movie, but not even really. Rachel, on the other hand, because she is protecting Jamie, she goes into this fight or flight mode immediately and does something just remarkable, something that we never see in a final girl in slasher movies. And still to this day, I think she is the greatest final girl in history, because she ultimately is willing to give her own life to save someone else. It's not just her against Myers. And that's part of what made Halloween 4 so great. So, take her in Halloween 5. it's really just a disrespect to the character. I think you had the obvious direction to go in this movie. Have her live throughout the whole movie and then ultimately give her life at the end of Halloween 5. I think that would have made Halloween 5 a much better film. Also, do not make Jamie a mute character. I think maybe hindsight's 20/20, I don't know, but to me those were pretty obvious. When you have a character that everybody loves to death, and Ellie Cornell's even said, hey, I don't expect this character to live in every Halloween movie.
They sent me the script for Halloween 5, and I read it, and I didn't love it. Not just because they killed me off, because I was surprised I lived through 4. I mean, I think for any character to live through these films from start to finish is something pretty cool, but it was the way that they killed off Rachel in the first go-around. I was supposed to get scissors shoved down my throat, and I said, no way.
But to go out like she did is just blasphemous, almost. Like, why would they even do that? And originally they were going to stab her straight down the throat, Psycho 2 style. But you know what? The damage was done. Even if stabbing her in the shoulder, it's still just a really shitty way to handle that character. And unfortunately, we'll never get that back. So throughout the second third of this movie, a lot of it takes place in daylight. And first off, you got these cops that are there to help Rachel when she's in the middle of her scene with Myers. You don't want to take this movie seriously at all because these cops are just complete baffling idiots. And then to make matters worse, you have this music in the background by Alan Howarth that is preposterous. And I believe Alan Howarth actually, received that direction from the director.
All clear. Nothing above, nothing below.
Because I don't think he would have wanted to do that right away. I could be wrong. Now, the Halloween 5 documentary that's on the box set is one of the most interesting documentaries, and I believe he does discuss the music in that. But these cops are just a major problem throughout the whole movie. When you are invested in characters in a movie and you constantly have these cops that just pop up and try to provide this comic relief that just fails miserably every time, then it knocks the wind out of you. Now, let's talk about Don Shanks. Don Shanks is a damn good Myers. We're jumping into the pros a little bit here. Now, he is a big guy, much like Tyler Mane. And I do like my Myers to be more like Nick Castle from the first movie. But Don Shanks does bring something to the character that I think does stick out. You want your Myers to be pretty damn scary, much like George P. Wilbur in 4 and 6. And I believe Don Shanks is the best part of this movie, honestly. In that last act, which is the best part of the movie, Don Shanks gets full credit. Because when Jamie's in that laundry chute, the reason we're afraid is because of the atmosphere, because of the claustrophobia, but also because of Don Shanks, who is just a really menacing and creepy Myers. And let's go ahead and jump into that last act, because this last act saves the movie. It really does. It is pretty damn pulse pounding. And it all starts when Myers is actually in Mike's, the douchebag guy who, luckily, Myers sticks this like mini fork thing right in his forehead, which is a fun kill. But right away, this is when the film kicks over into nighttime territory. We got Tina in the car with Myers.
I said stop the goddamn car! I want a pack of cigarettes!
And that scene is pretty wicked, actually. And I believe Don Shanks actually gave the advice to have Myers like fists on the wheel and just to make this like ratcheting sound to heighten up the tension, and it works beautifully. And then you got Myers not wearing his normal mask. He's wearing like just a regular Halloween mask, and so his eyes in that scene, how he's looking back at Tina, pretty damn effective. But then the scene everybody likes to talk about, the cookie scene, where you have Jamie and she can sense that Myers is at the barn.
Cookie woman.
Cookie woman.
And then Loomis is trying to figure out what she's saying, and then they realize that she's at the cookie convenience store, the cookie lady.
Cookie woman.
Cookie woman.
And I just like mentioning that scene because for some reason that's one of those scenes that just really sticks out, because she's doing kind of a stuttering thing, which is kind of funny because her friend in the movie, Billy, is a stutterer. And from a writing standpoint, you know, you wanted these two children to have like this strong chemistry together, but they didn't really build up anything between them. And you had this mute child, and then you had this stuttering child. And so throughout the movie, you really just don't care what's going on. I think if Jamie at least talked, then maybe you would have had something there. So I can't really blame the other little kid. But once we get to the Halloween party scene, first off, you got this great atmospheric barn location. There's the sex scene that's happening the whole time. And then you got Myers looming in the barn. And the way this scene is lit and directed, I think is pretty damn effective, actually. I think it's great. And what's cool about this is behind the scenes, Don Shanks, he used to work on a farm. And so he thought up all these great ideas to, hey, why not have Myers use these crazy like woodworking tools? And he uses a scythe, which is pretty damn awesome. Like one of my favorite kills in the franchise, just because it's just like whew, one fell swoop. And then he uses this pitchfork and sticks it right in the back of the guy getting it on with his girlfriend. And then there's this whole section with Michael chasing Jamie. And it seems like it lasts for a long time, but it never lets up. And I specifically want to talk about the laundry chute scene. Because when Danielle Harris is in that laundry chute, you know, when you're a child, you're pretty naive to what you can and shouldn't do in Hollywood. And this is a scene that she has stated she will never do again. Because when she was in there, they were stabbing a real knife through that chute. And she actually got cut in the leg when they were doing the scene. But the scene works so well because she is literally trapped. Myers goes to the top, Myers goes to the bottom. I think at this moment, she almost like accepted her fate. And once she does get out, she goes to this coffin, and this is where she sees all the dead bodies, Myers' victims, and she just accepts her fate. And then Myers comes up, and they have this like little moment there. And I actually like this. You know, this is where she accepts her fate. She knows that, hey, I'm gonna die, but this is my family. I am curious, so she wants to see his face. And this is the first time we've seen Myers' face, and I'm glad that they lit it so you didn't really see it, because Don Shanks looks like an Indian. And in the first movie, he's got this angelic face with his blonde hair. So I'm glad they kept it in the shadows. And then finally, you got this final showdown with Myers and Loomis. And I haven't really even talked about Loomis yet, but Loomis might be like his most insane in this movie. I think this is where Loomis earns his stripes as far as being like a wacky doctor, because he's obsessed with Myers. And I love that line, I prayed that he would burn in hell, but I knew that hell would not have him.
I prayed that he would burn in hell, but in my heart, I knew that hell would not have him.
But you got Loomis, he's holding Jamie down the stairs, pretty much taunting Myers, saying, hey, come and get it. And then he just beats the shit out of him with a 2x4. And by the way, with that 2x4, he actually broke Don Shanks' nose. So I guess that's how into the part he gets. And behind the scenes, Don Shanks stated that when Donald Pleasance is like, you know, hugging Myers, he like whispered in his ear something really creepy. I'll put it right here because I can't remember it and I didn't want to say the wrong thing, but
he's laying on top of me and I'm supposedly dying, he's dying, and the lights are flashing, and he whispers to me, he goes, now I get it. I abused you as a child.
It's something that he just came up with on the spur of the moment, and like, what the hell? Now, Halloween 5 actually sets up like for Halloween 6. And so then Halloween 5, Myers is caught, he's in a jail cell, and then there's this like major jail breakout scene, Terminator style. And so you're expecting that there's gonna be this sequel to come out probably the next year or two. And no, we don't get another sequel for 6 years. Talk about a freaking cliffhanger. I remember after seeing that scene, you know, I came out of the theater and I really dug that last act. You know, it made me want to know more. And so that wait for Halloween 6 was completely excruciating. And then when I saw Halloween 6 in the theater, I was elated. I loved the hell out of it. I know it's a controversial movie. I've reviewed the movie a couple times already, so you know my thoughts on that one. Overall, guys, Halloween 5, it's, like I said, like one of my least favorites of the bunch, but for some reason I find myself watching it the most. just because there's so much to grab onto, the bad and the good. For some reason, for me, it's an enjoyable watch. So I'm definitely giving it a humdrum. So guys, that's it. Halloween 5 Revisited. What are your thoughts on this one? The next Halloween Revisited review I will do is probably going to be H2O. So look for that maybe next month. Also guys, be sure to come over to Killer Flicks, where we talk horror all day and every day, and on Fridays we do Free For All Fridays. Follow me at Drumdums on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd, and now Stardust. If you like what I'm doing, hit that subscribe button. I'd really appreciate it. Anyway guys, thank you so much for watching. Have a great day, and Drumdum out.